Hi guys, Tim Montgomerie, the founder of the influential Conservative Home, who I have respect for from time to time, really dropped the ball on this one. So he was invited onto Newsnight to talk about the riots that are taking place across England at the moment and are likely to continue for some time. Nobody on the right, be it from the centre to Reform UK, have given any possible solutions to what's happening. But they will point the finger of blame, and you can be sure it isn't at themselves. And Tim either jumps into or falls into the anti-immigration trap. Have a listen.
Well, you've introduced me as a Conservative, and I sometimes think what Mrs Thatcher would say in a circumstance like this. And she would have a different view, perhaps, than this government, previous Tory administrations, on some of the multicultural issues and immigration. But her foremost response would be to condemn the thuggery. You know, this is, a lot of it is alcohol fueled, it's drug fueled, it's completely unacceptable. And any decent person in Britain today, a patriot, a Christian, someone who believes in Western civilization, and that front line in Liverpool would be on the side of defending the mosque, not attacking it. These people do not speak for all those people in Britain who do have some real questions about community cohesion. There is no excuse, no defence for what we're seeing in too many cities, too many northern towns in Britain at the moment.
Coco Khan?
I am not convinced that this particular mob has legitimate questions. If other people have legitimate questions and have concerns, then of course there are many forums to discuss them, and discuss them we should. But I'm not convinced that those two things should be conflated. You know, most of these people are being mobilised by disinformation they read on the internet.
Agreed.
They are monstering a group of people that they don't have much information about, and they are looking to scapegoat a group of people who have very little power for what I would say is many years of government failings. So I would just wanted to just say that I don't think these people necessarily represent what we might call legitimate concerns.
I think you would say, and Luke will be able to confirm some of this though, if you poll the British people, if you look at some of what's being retweeted on social media, there's a body of public opinion in Britain not protesting, not behaving like yobs, who are concerned about some things that they've never given consent to in this country, a scale of immigration, a failure of certain communities to integrate that are legitimate. We have to divorce what we're seeing tonight, unacceptable, from those conversations. I completely agree with Coco on that. But there is a failure in this country to be able to talk about how outraged it is that Muslim friends of mine have been telling me this week that they are frightened in Britain, just as Jews have been frightened over the last 9 months, but also to be able to talk about why have certain Muslim immigrants, particularly this country, failed to integrate. Those are legitimate questions, and being able to talk about them at the same time without accusing each other of racism or whatever is really important.
Okay. So there are a few things to mention here. First of all, he talks about people not giving consent to the scale of immigration. What does he mean by that? Because the two main political parties in Britain, that being Labour and the Conservatives, have talked about immigration. In particular, the Conservatives keep using it as a tool. They tried to use it as a tool to keep Labour at bay, and they succeeded because they won power. And then they tried to use it again when it came to Reform UK, and they lost support. But they continue to use the issue of immigration. And I've yet to hear a Conservative MP or a Conservative commentator explain why immigration is a problem. Like, what Tim later goes on to talk about is integration. Okay, integration is an issue. It's an important issue. But why is immigration itself a problem? Because the Conservatives are one issue, of course, is integration. But they're constantly banging on about how immigration numbers need to come down. They don't explain why. They just say they need to come down. When pushed, some Conservative commentators will talk about stresses on the NHS, on housing, but that's a government responsibility. That's nothing, in a sense, to do with immigration. If you want to release... there's no point complaining about immigration if you're saying about housing and the NHS. Then what you do is you fund the NHS correctly so it can deal with the extra inflow of immigrants. If it's about housing, then you build more houses. You don't, as a government, of course the Conservatives are no longer in power, but when they were, You don't, as a government, get away with just saying, well, the problem is immigration. There are too many people coming in. You are responsible for making sure that there are sufficient resources available for citizens. If they're not, then get out of power and let somebody else take over who can do the job. All they do instead is blame immigrants. It's easy. Like in the run-up to Brexit, blame the EU. Now it's blame immigrants. Instead, we should be building houses. We should be funding the NHS. But instead of actually doing those things, it's easier, it's cheaper to blame immigrants. Now, on the issue of integration, it's a two-way street. And this is something that's never mentioned as well. There's an onus, of course there's an onus on people who arrive in the country to integrate. But we, on the other side, if we want them to integrate, we have to go there as well. We have to help facilitate that integration. There's no point, and this is one of the most frustrating things about this for me, is you have people who sit on the sidelines saying, look at this community not integrating. Well, my question to that individual or that group of people would be, what are you doing to help them integrate? If your answer is nothing, then shut the F up. You have no reason to complain. In the same way as the Conservatives have no reason to complain about people not integrating when they don't help these people integrate. People will arrive from different countries. They will have mindsets that are different to the way we do things here, or in Europe, in the UK, in the West. That's natural. People from different communities will have different ways of doing things. Now, if we want them to integrate and integrate in a good way, we have to help that. Just imagine you go to Japan. You're from Europe, you're from Britain, you move to Japan tomorrow. Wouldn't it be great if there was somebody who could help you, who could mentor you in how to integrate into Japanese society, so that you don't make mistakes, that you don't say the wrong thing, that if you're at a job interview, that you bow the right way in order to help you get that job? Isn't that something you would like to have, as opposed to being left to your own devices? Because if you're left to your own devices, what are you going to do? You're going to look out for people who are like you, from the same community, from the same country, who speak the same language, and you're going to stay in that group. There's a responsibility on the individual who has migrated to a country to integrate, but there's also an obligation on the host country to help facilitate integration. And unfortunately, parties like the Conservative Party have outsourced this responsibility just to the people integrating. So, it's their job, because the Conservatives don't want to spend money on public services. They call it woke, helping people integrate, and then later complain that they don't integrate, and then you see riots like this where people are complaining, well, why aren't these people integrating? Why aren't they adopting British values? It's absurd. These problems have simple solutions, but it takes time and it takes effort, and unfortunately, many people don't want to spend either time or effort. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.